my name's Frida. I'm a sexual health educator at the Young Women's Resource Center. And in this video, we're going to be talking a little bit about gender identity and gender expression. So the reason that we like to talk about this when we talk about reproductive health is you'll notice we don't use gendered language when we're talking about reproductive health. So we don't say like boys and girls or men and women. We say people with uteruses or people who menstruate, people without uteruses, people who don't menstruate, right? Because we know that just because somebody has a uterus, somebody has the capacity to menstruate or be pregnant, doesn't necessarily mean that they identify as a woman or a girl. So we're gonna explain that and get into that a little bit with our little friend, the gender unicorn here. So we have this available to like download or print off yourself if you want to follow along and like color it in while we go through it. That would be great. So first up, we're going to talk about gender identity. Gender identity is how a person in their head views themselves. So they might think of themselves as a man, a woman, non-binary, genderqueer. There are like a lot of different options out there. And gender identity is really important to respect because we don't know somebody's gender just from looking at them, right? So that's why it's like really important to ask people what pronouns they prefer, ask people maybe like what words they prefer to be referred to by. And so our little gender unicorn pal here, that gender identity is gonna be this little thought bubble because that's how they think about themselves in their head, is their gender identity. So gender identity is how somebody thinks about themselves in their head. The sex assigned at birth, that's what we're usually most familiar with. So when everybody is born, a doctor like takes a look at their genitals and they pretty much put like a male or female marker on their birth certificate. So the sex assigned at birth is a combination of anatomy, hormones, chromosomes that folks were born with. And that's gonna kind of designate what sex they're assigned at birth. So the corresponding part on our little coloring sheet is going to be this DNA part right here, because that's their sex assigned at birth. So if somebody grows up and their gender identity aligns with the sex that they were assigned at birth, so if somebody was assigned female at birth, if they have, you know, a vulva, uteruses, ovaries, that sort of thing, they are somebody that is cisgender. So cisgender means that their gender identity aligns with the sex that they were assigned at birth. If somebody grows up and their gender identity does not align with the sex that they were assigned at birth, that person might consider themselves transgender. And transgender just means that their gender identity differs from their sex that was assigned at birth. So those are two really important differences between gender identity and sex assigned at birth. So we have our little thought bubble up here, how somebody identifies with their gender, and then we have the little DNA chromosomes down there, which might indicate like their sex assigned at birth. So the gender expression, this one's really cool because everybody has a gender expression, right? Cisgender people do, transgender people do, non-binary people do. Gender expression is just how we each individually express our gender through the way that we talk, act, dress, maybe like wear makeup or choose not to wear makeup, and behave. Those are all gonna be different ways that we express our gender to the world around us. So the corresponding on the little worksheet is just gonna be these dots because that's kind of the way that we look and we present out to the world. And there are so many different ways to present your gender, right? So not all cis person presents their gender the same, not all trans people present their gender the same. And that's why, again, it's really important to not assume somebody's gender identity and to make sure that we're asking what pronouns people prefer, what words they prefer to be referred to as. The last little thing on this worksheet we're gonna cover is attraction. So attraction is gonna be these little hearts inside this unicorn right here. And attraction talks about like who we are romantically or physically attracted to, right? So attraction and sexual orientation, that's gonna be different than our gender identity. Because again, it just differs for each person. So somebody might be heterosexual, which means that they're attracted to the opposite gender. Somebody might be homosexual, which means they're attracted to the same gender. They might identify as like bi or pan or queer, and they might be attracted to like a whole slew of genders. So romantic and sexual attraction are different, and again, it's not something that we can know about someone by just looking at them. So again, just like really important to not make assumptions about people's gender or sexual orientation based on how they present, how they look, and really important to respect everybody's different gender identities and sexual orientations as well. So that's kind of why we talk about reproductive health and reproduction the way that we do, right? Because we recognize that not all people who can reproduce, not all people who have periods are going to identify as girls and women.